Whose Turn Is It Anyway, your board gaming podcast where we're excited to have you join our gaming group. I'm JP and I am excited to be back as first player. Hooray!
Boo.
Boo. What do you mean, boo?
I don't know. I just like to be contrary.
Fair enough, fair enough.
It's nature.
Yes, and the other lovely voices you can hear are Ian.
Hello.
And Kerley.
Hello, everyone.
And we're here to talk about our futuristic voyage into the cyberpunk universe of Netrunner.
Yeah.
So Ian's very excited, aren't you?
I've been waiting a while for this episode.
Yeah. When are you going to do Netrunner? When are you going to do Netrunner? Shall we do a Netrunner episode?
The thing is, you've shot yourself in the foot because, you're doing episodes that I'm really interested in. So now I have no motivation to try and take first player off you because you're doing the stuff I want anyway.
Maybe that's what we want, Ian.
Yeah.
To keep me out of first player.
Who knows? Who knows?
I wouldn't blame you.
Should we get on with the show?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So now we come into our second term where we talk about Hex, all the games that we've been playing, probably over Christmas, right? Unless I'm looking at Curly, he's been playing games every day since
Yeah,
the 1st of December.
Yeah, I had 8 days in a row where I was playing games.
8
every
days?
day. 8
Oh
days.
My God. That is a streak.
That was a good streak.
That is a
See, I know a lot of people have a peak of board gaming around Christmas because obviously people are travelling, seeing their families, doing social things, and board games are one of the things that tend to come out. But it just hasn't even made a blip on Curly's radar because he was just 24/7 board gaming anyway.
He's basically gaming and then just had turkey at some point and then
just
carried on.
Just had turkey instead of a Chinese. That's the only thing that's changed, right?
Yeah. No, actually, it's one of those things that people were off over Christmas, right? But that golden sweet spot between Christmas and New Year, nearly everyone's off. I mean, I know some of you. Thanks for working down the shops and the railways and things like that.
See, I was about to act offended because
people...
I was working that week, but I don't actually do anything useful. So
no,
you then went ahead and thanked people who actually do valuable work.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Becky, for example, she works for the NHS and she was working in the theatres and things like that. But for the most part, people are off. I'd say probably 78% of people. So yeah, it was just a good time to get in some games with people that
So go on then. I'm going to pick on you first.
Oh,
Out of which 70 odd days of non-stop gaming, what game are you going to pick to talk about today?
Well, as I said, I could pick a few, but we'll go with... Well, I've played 2 games recently, and I'll go with Scythe. Been a long time since I got Scythe to the table, and I absolutely loved it.
Okay.
Yeah, I really enjoyed a good game of Scythe. It's one that we only get out every 6 months or so.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love it, and I always forget how quick it plays and how satisfying it is, and just generally good fun. That old timing element of when the game finishes, because the game just finishes, bam, there it is, done.
Yeah.
No one gets an extra turn. It doesn't go round to the first play. Nothing like that.
And is it somewhat unpredictable in it? Because I've never played Scythe, so I don't know the
100%.
mechanics, but it can kind of creep up on you and suddenly it's too late to do anything.
Yeah, the timing is absolutely critical in that game. And if you get a gotcha on everyone else, no one's really expecting you to finish, and they go bam, bam, it's really...
30 points, and then you've probably lost.
Yeah, that's it, and so I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed that, and that was really good fun.
That was one that I think Chris wanted to get to the table, right?
Yeah, we're getting it to the table in February, I think, or maybe even early February as well. So
because I know he's really excited about that. He seems to be quite keen.
Yeah, it's been a few months since I've got it, and then I've got it twice in 2 months, which is still great. But yeah, I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed it.
What faction did you play?
So I played as, you're gonna have to forgive me, but the Tractors.
Oh, the Crimea.
What's that?
Crimea,
the yellow.
Yeah.
Yellow.
The yellow faction.
The yellow Tratters.
Yellow Tratters.
My lover.
Yeah, but I really like that faction because you can spend combat cards as resource, can't you?
Yeah, and they've got a good starting area. He doesn't have the modular boards.
Yeah.
So that was nice as well because I knew roughly what the good
you knew that puzzle a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. So they were a really good starting faction. They got good starting abilities. They got a good river walk ability for those of you who've played it before. So absolutely love playing Scythe again. I think we've talked about it previously in the pod, so I won't go into detail.
I'm sure we have. Into
what the game is and everything else. But
it's quite a well-known game.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, if you imagine an alternative, I guess
1920s, isn't it?
It is 1920s, but yeah, you've got some modern stuff mixed in with some old stuff, like mechs you've got, and then you've got, but it looks very 1920s.
Yeah, it's based on an alternate history of 1920 plus, so kind of after the Great War. Yeah, but as if history took a different direction and got heavily influenced by mechs and steam and all sorts of technology that's been introduced. So it's kind of oldie worldy, steampunky, kind of like Eastern rapid, European,
like rapid artwork. Technological development.
Yeah. The artwork's beautiful.
Artwork is stunning. It's really well designed game. If you've not heard of it before, which is very unlikely, but it is a Stonemaier game, so the same people. And as much as some people are hit and miss with Stonemaier, but I think the component quality is very high. Their customer service has always been very good to me and Becky. So definitely. I think they've definitely got a good reputation out there for the most part, although not with everyone. Great game. It's not really a combat game, which mechs and stuff like that assume it's an area control. Makes you think of combat. It's not really that.
No, not at all.
So it's a brilliant game. Really loved it. Looking forward to playing it again in a few weeks' time.
Nice. How about you, Ian?
I was with my parents over Christmas, and our home does tend to become a haven of games during Christmas, but not the kind of games that most people who listen to the podcast are interested in. We have even had Christmases where we play Monopoly, but this year, actually, one of the presents I got from my sister was a really, really smart little game. I think it's like a Mensa approved game or whatever the accreditation is that you can get, called, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Quoridor. It's Corridor, but with a QU at the start. It's a really neat little game. You can play it 2-player or 4-player, and essentially you've got a little person that you're trying to get across the board, and every turn, you can either move your person or you can place a fence down to try and make it harder for your opponent to get across the board. But you've got to kind of do it strategically without blocking yourself. And it played really neat. It was just surprising. After reading the very small, by our standards, rulebook,
the pamphlet,
I was like, this seems like so simple. Surely this is just going to become really boring straight away. But it kind of reminded me of other sort of Mensa type games and things like chess, where it's like, there's all kinds of hidden complexity there, and you start to build your own meta game as well, because it's like, I know my sister always puts up a big wall over here and tries to stop me doing this, and it's a cool little game. I'm sure it's probably effectively solved. I can't imagine that there's too much to really discover, but certainly it was fun, and we tried the 4-player game as well, which becomes
carnage.
Much more of a cluster. It is like, because you've got all 4 of you basically racing to the middle, but trying to stop everyone else getting to the middle so that you can get to the other side, and then
you're just creating a maze for yourself,
the second half of the game is mostly putting down fences to send the person who's very nearly got to where they need to go, making them go much further to get to where they need to go. But it was good. I definitely recommend it. It's I think on Board Game Geek it's like sub 2 in terms of like weight. It's really, really easy. Learn it in 5 minutes, play it once, and you've learned it.
I first came across this game on like TikTok, I think, or on the socials. As you know, I do a lot of our socials, so I end up wasting a lot of my time on TikTok videos. But I watched some videos of it being played, and literally within 5 seconds, I got this game. It's literally that simple. It's move your guy, place a fence, and then it's quite mesmerising to watch. It's like and you just watching this thing evolve, and I ended up watching it for like 5 minutes.
I can imagine if you watch people who have played it a lot or are good at it, it probably is like a very, very simplified version of Go. Where the kind of the board state sort of develops, and things might, or even like chess, where like to the uneducated eye, a certain move, you can't explain why it's a good move, but someone who's very good at the game can explain why it's a good move, and they know that it's good. If that makes sense. It's kind of there's a lot of sort of lateral thinking, I think, and kind of weighing up different permutations and being able to visualize like the routes and stuff. So it's a good little game.
I really like low complexity, low entry games, and then high sort of ceiling for skill. That's like one of my favorites.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's what this is. I mean, we only played a handful of games. We certainly are no good at it, but it strikes me as that kind of game that probably you could sit down for hours and hours and hours and play lots of it and really refine kind of a strategy. So it was good fun.
Nice. Well, I'm going to talk about Cubitos or Cubitos or
however you pronounce
it. I still don't know.
We're just picking games we can't pronounce.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked about this on I think our Christmas special. That was a game I was going to play because I get a game every year for the family to play at Christmas Eve. And we have played that since Christmas Eve, our first game. We've played it 8 times.
8 times, wow.
Which it's pretty good going, considering it's my family.
Yeah, it's a pretty good yardstick.
Majority of those times was with my son. He absolutely loves this game.
It does sound fun.
He absolutely loves it. So for those that don't know what this game is, and this is going to be quite difficult to explain, it's basically Cubitos is a world full of cube-like characters, all right, and cuboid type people, and every year they put on a cube cup, a race, right? Yeah, stick with me, guys. Yeah,
is it like the Camel Cup?
Yeah.
Are the graphics similar to Minecraft? Because in my head, I just get Minecraft.
Very kind of blocky looking kind of artwork on there. And then every year they do this Q Cup. So you have basically you pick your racer. They're all the same in terms of abilities. They just look different, and they all start on start line. So in the middle of the board, you've got a racetrack with kind of interlocking squares that kind of go all the way around. On the racetrack, there's like water, there's barriers, there's bonus pick-up things, a bit like Mario Kart, where you kind of run over and get abilities and different things, money, etc. But the bit kind of how it works is it's essentially a dice builder. And it reminds me of Quacks of Quedlinburg a lot, except that's a bag builder. But it's the same sort of principle of push your luck. So you'll start the game with 7 light grey dice and 2 dark grey dice. And these dice are really small as well. They're like really, really, really tiny, but you end up having like loads of them in your hand at some point. You're just chucking.
Is it quite satisfying?
Oh, yeah, it's chucking like 15, 16, 18 dice at once. It's like,
who doesn't love rolling huge numbers of dice at the same time?
Yeah, it's very tactile.
An ex-Warhammer player, that is very satisfying.
So anyway, you got these grey dice, 7 light, 2 dark, and the light grey dice are pretty much the shittest dice. But they've got 5 blanks and one side's got a bit of money on, right? The dark grey has 1 money and 1 movement. So you can imagine
basically like it's sort of basic action dice.
Think about your basic hand of cards in a deck builder, right? They're pretty crap, and you need to kind of upgrade them. So you kind of roll in these things, and the crux of it is that you roll, and as soon as you get 3 or more hits, so anything that shows a symbol, you put that into like your active zone, and then if you want to roll again, you're basically pushing your luck, because if you roll all blanks, you bust.
Right.
And
you lose what you've already got.
You lose what you've already banked. So you're like, I've got free money and a movement. I think I could get a bit more money. You roll it, you bust, and you go, damn! And then you basically forego that. And there's catch-up mechanisms in there that says, like, if you bust, you'll end up going up on this fans track, which is a track to the side, and that might give you a little bit of money, might increase your hand size of how many dice you can roll.
That's nice. So it's quite forgiving.
Yeah, if you crap out a lot, it's not the end of the world, and actually there are some strategies that you might want to crap out a lot so that you can get better in the later game, and it all depends on the races that you race. So that's the kind of general mechanics. So if you accrue money to buy extra dice, and these extra dice, various different colours, all have different abilities. And what's really good about it is that every dice has a stack of cards for the same colour dice that you can basically play in different races. So it's very varied. So the green dice might have, 12 cards, and they're similar themes, but they all work differently. So every race that you race with, it feels different, and it changes the mechanics and combinations of how you interact with other dice colours and stuff like that. So yeah, you kind of got dice that give you more money generation. You've got dice that help you protect you from busting. You've got dice that you kind of comparing swords to other players. Whoever has the most swords then can do extra stuff. There's all sorts of bonkers things that are going on. But as you can imagine, in kind of any deck buildery type games, you're accruing more dice. You kind of getting them all into your discard pile. You're redrawing up, and then you basically have this cycle of dice you're trying to manipulate to get the right combinations at the right time.
And you're getting more powerful as the game goes on because you're accruing new
But it's a race. At the end of the day, you're trying to get your character, your cuboid character, around the track to the finish line.
So the victory condition's very simple, even though there's lots of little things that can happen along the way.
Who's better at it, you or Josh?
I think I've got the edge.
Yeah.
But he had, the last game he played, he had such a stonking race where he was rolling like 10 movement in one go, which is mega. Like you move 10
Sorry,
spaces.
JP, you can say it. You're amongst friends here. It's a safe space.
Yeah, he kicked my ass.
He got really lucky, and you hate him.
But no, it's one of them. It's like you kind of building your little engine of dice, and away you go. And he just
does sound fun.
He
Does sound
played.
pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it's such a
How
good
many
game.
does it play?
That's my only complaint with it, actually. It's not a bad thing, but it's a max 4 player.
Right.
And I go, why can't it do more? Because it's simultaneous play as well.
Components, maybe?
I mean, yeah, the fact they don't put
Component
more
cost?
components in
Yeah,
it,
I
but
guess.
I bet that's an expansion coming, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all simultaneous play. You're rolling at the same time. You're resolving it pretty much at the same time. So the downtime in it's minimal.
That's nice.
So
It
you're just going for it, doing it, and then where it matters, because sometimes it does matter, you can kind of say, hold on, I want to resolve in turn order because it might matter. But generally,
I guess possibly there might be dice that let you mess with other people's dice, stuff like that.
no, I don't think it's that interaction. Or I don't think it's that interactive in that you can screw other people per se.
Okay, I'm not interested then.
But it might be that you need to compare something before someone moves.
Oh, like you
forward
were saying,
with
who's
the
got the
sword.
most swords or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a methodical process that you would go through, but you can all go through it at the same time. So teaching it is brilliant because you're like, right, we're all just going to do it. Off we go.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
can teach it in seconds, and you're off. So
that's cool.
anyway, yeah. Cubitos, try it out. That's the games we played, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get on to the main event.
Sounds good.
Okay, gents, it's time to get ourselves in the future. Let's get all cyberpunky and moody.
Yeah.
We're entering the world of Netrunner.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If JP's feeling saucy with his editing, he'll put some cool cyberpunk music here.
Yeah, if I can be asked.
No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, if it's,
He's already said he's asked for it.
yeah, silence. So no, I thought what we'll do first is we've got a kind of a bit of a process to kind of walk through this topic in general. But let's start with what the hell is Netrunner? And Ian, I'm actually going to pick on you.
Oh no.
Because Netrunner, you have proclaimed to be one of your favourite ever games, and you've not shied away from saying that this game is one of your favourite. Which out of 2, by the way?
I don't think it's just one of my favourite games. I think it is one of the best games that there is. And we'll go into lots of detail later about why.
We will.
But first, I mean,
Premise.
what's important to point out is that the reason I got into Netrunner is all your fault.
Yeah.
Just like everyone in the group, being in the group is your fault.
Yeah.
This was the game that you lured me in with all those years
What
ago.
a game to lure you in.
Oh,
And then that for you brought me in. So
and then I
that's,
lured Kerley
it's
in,
kind of,
yes.
Which is
Yeah.
why you two were handpicked for this episode.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and again, I'm sure we'll touch on it later. Me and Kerley shared a collection of
Yeah.
Netrunner for some time until I had to buy him out, sadly.
Yeah, it was over a year we lived together, and well, I mean, to say a lot of Netrunner was played would be
like nightly for hours, right?
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
ridiculous. But
decadent times.
it just shows what a good game is.
No,
like, we were fully addicted from the word go.
Yeah.
And let's put a disclaimer out. This episode's not going to be kind of a deep dive into the strategic game of Netrunner because we don't want to lose people.
And also, none of us are any good at it.
No, we're shit at it, aren't we? So
we can't offer any insight.
So if you've never heard of Netrunner and this is kind of your first foray into this game, or maybe you've heard of it but you're not really sure what it's all about, then hopefully this episode's for you, right? Because we want to try and bring this game to life. We want to share how freaking amazing this game is and how it should be played more. And but yeah, Ian, set the scene, bring us all into the future.
All right.
What is it?
So Netrunner is in many ways quite a unique game. So it's an asymmetric 2-player card game. So there's a lot of things there that people's ears will be pricking up already. So it's asymmetric. The 2 players are trying to do different things in a game of Netrunner. One player is playing as an evil megacorporation who are trying to advance their dastardly agendas and basically screw people over. And the other player is playing as usually a much more ethically, it's kind of admirable, although not always,
Depends.
but an opposing what's called a runner, who is basically like a hacker. And they're trying to hack into the corporation systems and stop them from advancing their dastardly agendas and doing bad things. All while trying to not be killed and all of those kinds of things. So the whole game is set in this futuristic cyberpunk world, very reminiscent of, you know, the game Cyberpunk 2077, stuff like that, and heavily influenced by stuff like the William Gibson novels like Neuromancer and stuff like that. There's a lot of concepts in the Netrunner world that kind of draw from those sorts of source materials. So it's a very...
reminded me of Blade Runner as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Blade Runner is a great example of something else that's got crossover with it. A kind of dystopian future. Anyone who watched...
Alter Carbon.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm so glad you remembered that. Otherwise, we were going to have to pause again to Google something.
Even like Fifth Element and stuff like
exactly,
that.
Exactly. Like, so if you like any of those sorts of genres of movies or TV shows or games, this theme is going to be really up your street. Yeah. But outside of the theme, the actual game itself is just fantastic. Like I say, it is a card game, and it is a 2-player card game. Now, that can sometimes be something that puts people off, because like we talked about in the earlier section, you know, having a low cap on maximum players can sometimes make things a bit restrictive. But what I find with Netrunner is, because it's one-on-one, well, if you've got 4 people, then you just play 2 games. If you've got 6 people, you play 3 games, and you just rotate around.
As long as you can divide by 2, you're good.
That's it.
But even then, if you've got 5, I tend to find it makes quite a good game for viewing, because it does feel like a tussle between 2.
Absolutely.
And that person, you just, you know, they're only setting out 1 in 5.
That's it.
Would work out.
Yeah. You know, the person sitting out just watches the game or makes some teas or whatever. You know,
it becomes useful.
Yeah. Exactly. But you're right though. That's a really good point. That it's a game, in my opinion, that's very watchable once you understand the game. 100%. Every game is different. You know, the permutations of what can happen. Even when people are playing very well established archetypes and decks that are sort of known at kind of a competitive level, still every game is different, because the order that your cards come just completely changes what you're going to be able to do and when. And so and we'll talk later about the deck building elements and stuff, I'm sure, but yeah, in short, it's this battle between the evil mega corporation and a runner, and the corporation is trying to create servers and, like I say, advance these evil agendas, and the victory condition is that you score what are called agenda points. So these agendas are a type of card in the game, and the corporation is trying to score them, and the runner is trying to steal them. And that's another thing that's kind of unique about Netrunner, is the interactions between runner and corp. You know, it's not just 2 players doing their own thing and then seeing who wins at the end. You are literally fighting each other. It's fully interactive. As the runner, you, as the name implies, you go on what are called runs, and you actually try and break into a given server, as it's called on the corp side. One thing about Netrunner is there's a lot of terminology.
Oh yes,
and we'll try to keep it to a minimum.
There's rigs, there's grips, there's heaps,
exactly.
There's trash. There's
you need a big glossary, but it all becomes it's all very thematic, so it all fits and makes sense. But yeah, the interactivity is another one of the things that I love about the game, is the fact that, you know, the runner is going on runs, and they're, you know, the corporation is then doing things during those runs to try and stop them, and there's all kinds of defenses and different things like that. So it's a very interactive game. It's a very dynamic game. Like I say, every game is different. I mean, me and you, Kerley, we played hundreds, if not thousands, of games of Netrunner over the course of a couple of years, and I don't feel like we had too many games that felt the same.
No, not at all.
You know, it was very varied, wasn't it?
But we got well into it. I think I remember us making a deck of each. So I think there's there's 3. We won't go into this right now because we will, but 3 runner factions and 4 corps.
4 corps.
And we had 1 deck each of each one, and we would cycle through all the possible permutations just because we were that bored.
We were trying to match them against each other to see which faction that we've built is strongest, and like which one do we prefer to play, and which one wins the most, and all that kind of stuff. So
the biggest surprising thing out of that is we actually both had girlfriends at the time, so it was like
no, which is astounding.
You still got away with it.
Playing a card game.
I mean, they were probably just glad to be rid of us.
Weren't
they?
I'll say you were living in the same house pretty much at the same time. So you had that. Should we have a quick game?
That did largely increase the volume of Netrunner that was played. And in fact, me and you, we started our Netrunner collection together jointly because we thought it's really silly for us to have our own separate collections. We'll just both start pitching in. But yeah, that's the elevator pitch for Netrunner.
Brilliant.
It's cyberpunk, futuristic, 2-player asymmetric card game with those 2 distinct player types of corporation and runner battling it out, and it's just bloody great.
And if that sounds interesting to any of our listeners, then keep listening, because there's a lot to unpick with this game. And
I mean, even if it doesn't sound interesting, please
just still listen.
Do still keep listening. We'd appreciate that.
Yeah, or just use the chapters and skip right past to the next section. But it's all good. It's all good. No, I wanted to kind of touch upon kind of our group's history with Netrunner, and like my first kind of interactions with it. I bought the Fantasy Flight version of Netrunner in, I don't know, somewhere like mid. No, it would have been late 2017 or something like that. Yeah, so it's been out a fair while by the time I kind of got my hands on it.
Yeah, so 2012 was the Fantasy Flight release,
which is Android
Netrunner.
So Fantasy Flight put basically this game and the mechanics into their own IP of Android, their own universe with characters and that kind
which
of
is
stuff.
A fantastic IP as well. The Android
underused and underutilized.
Incredible. Yeah.
In my opinion, it's brilliant. And I first came across this game, and this is again going back to Fantasy Flight's catalogue that I had in XCOM.
Under the covers every night with a flashlight. Ooh, what can I buy next?
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched the official Fantasy Flight video, the tutorial video of what is this game? What's it all about? And I watched that and I was instantly hooked.
But you probably had no better idea. From what I remember of that video, you probably weren't any clearer on what the game was. It just looked really cool, right?
Yeah. This looks cool. Like you're hacking and you're trying to, or you're protecting, putting down firewalls, which are called ice. And you just thought, this is great. I've never seen anything like this before. And I instantly bought it. And I managed to cohere like Rob into playing the game, and said, "Rob, come and play this." He went, What do you mean? This looks weird." No, play it. And we played it, and he enjoyed it. And then it was basically, I found that I could manage to condense the core box into my basically work rucksack quite easily, protected, and I can take it on my work trips, which is where I took it to America when I was working out in America with Mr. Witt here with Ian, and we managed to play. I'll teach you in the hotel bar.
Yeah.
But only because there's bugger all else to do.
Well, that's it. I remember that was a very cold trip. This was in Maine.
Yeah.
So like Maine in the winter is just snow. It's just really cold.
It's a proper winter.
Proper winter.
Yeah.
And we couldn't find any bars or pubs close enough to our hotel that we wanted to walk to them.
Yeah.
So we just sat in the hotel lobby bar. And you said, "Oh, I've got this game that I got. Like, let's give it a go." And I was hooked instantly. Yeah. As were you. I mean, this is why you were so keen that you brought it to the States. Yeah, you were like, "I need to show this game to everyone."
Yeah, I think we even played it in the airport before we went back home as well.
We did. We had a quick game in the airport. Yeah.
And we were living together at the time, and you came back, and you were like, "Yeah, this game."
Well, I knew that you played Magic.
This guy JP that I know from work, who I'd never met before.
No, that's it. I mean, this was kind of the beginning of that introduction, wasn't it? But I just knew from your history playing Magic, combined with just how I knew your gaming personality was, I was like, you're going to love this game. And so, I very quickly convinced you to supplement my new addiction by sharing the collection.
Yeah, it's got to be done.
Well, you weren't wrong.
No.
So this is kind of our history with the game, and we played a fair amount of games since. But I think it's probably a good point to talk about the history of Netrunner.
I think it probably kicked off the group, to be honest. When you really drill it down,
I
think it was the large part of the origin of the Loaded Dice game group.
One of the core staples, wasn't it? That really transitioned us into the hobby.
It was certainly one of the first games I remember you, JP, effectively shopping around to people and trying to bring them in, which obviously was the start of the cult. Yeah, exactly. First it's free. Now we were just talking about your Frosthaven arriving, and it's like, really is. Really is first one's free.
I mean, you're welcome, guys. That's all I can say is
I mean, really, it's the game publishing industry that should be thanking you. I mean, you've made significant revenues for several publishers.
That is true. That's true. Let's cover the history, because people would have probably heard of Netrunner as the game that died, and
twice,
and maybe people still think it's dead, and maybe people think it's this historical game that people used to play a lot and then stop playing. So Ian as our encyclopedic knowledge of Netrunner.
I'm here as the Netrunner historian.
Absolutely, yeah.
Fantasy Flight actually did a reasonable job of, and I'm sure some people would disagree. There's probably people people who play Netrunner who might be screaming at their device at the moment. But overall, given what a difficult task it was, I think Fantasy Flight actually did a pretty decent job of trying to shepherd that game.
Yeah.
Thanks in large part to a guy called Damon Stone, who was the lead designer for a long time and is very well known in the board game community. And yeah, he did a lot of good work to try and keep this game balanced and fair and fun. And yeah, but it all came to an end. And yeah, right at the time where they just released that revised core, which was kind of, as you say, jarring to the community. And a lot of people were very heavily invested in Netrunner then, and I mean emotionally, not financially.
Yeah.
The community was incredibly tight knit. Lots of online interactions through Slack, and there were forums and all that kind of stuff.
And I think the reason for that is that Netrunner as a game is very representative of various communities that are out there. You seem to be able to get behind some of the characters in there because they represent their either sexuality or gender or whatever.
It's incredibly diverse, and that's one of the reasons why I mentioned Damon, because I know he was a big driving force behind that. Yeah. It's always been a game that, aside from the mechanics and the abilities that cards have, the theme was always so important. Yes. And the diversity of that theme and the people that you see in Netrunner are truly diverse. Oh, yeah. There's all ages, all races, every possible kind of diversity you can imagine. So 2018, Fantasy Flight discontinued the game. It sort of sends shockwaves through the community, and people are understandably very upset. And a bunch of people decided, nah, we're not having this. And a group came together with the intention of trying to find a way to continue the game. Initially, it was just a meeting of minds to kind of say, look, we don't want to stop playing Netrunner just because they're not making the game anymore. Yeah. How do we do that? How do we still organise tournaments? And it very quickly snowballed into those people saying, well, we don't just want to keep the competitive side going. We want more cards. Like we want this
content.
Yeah, we want this game to continue evolving. And eventually they banded together and formed a non-profit at the time called Nisei, which was based on a card from the game called Nisei Mark II, which is I know it's a 4-2 Jinteki agenda. Anyway, we're not going to get into that.
Anyway,
it's a good card, but they've since rebranded as Null Signal Games because there were some unfortunate connotations around the word Nisei that I'm sure you can Google if you're interested. But yeah, they came along, banded together, and just started trying to do it, and made lots of mistakes for sure, especially at the start. But they've been doing that now for almost 4 years.
About that,
yeah. It would have been summer 2018. So yeah, coming up on 4 years. They've released multiple cycles. They've run world championships, European championships, online, offline, obviously with the pandemic. They've survived through that, had incredible success. They're now popping up at board game conventions all over the shop.
Saw them at Expo.
They were at the UK Games Expo. I think they normally have a presence at PAX as well over in the States. Just doing fantastic stuff.
The community's still really strong, right?
It's as strong as it ever was, if not more so. So, and that brings us, basically up to present day.
That's kind of full circle.
That's what's been happening for the last 4 years, and it's a game that a lot of people who played in that 2012 to 2018 period, and then just kind of left when FFG discontinued, probably thought the game was dead. But more and more recently, there's word is getting around. Shut Up and Sit Down did a video.
I wanted to point that out because that video that they did, I don't know how many months ago.
It was
the last year.
Deep into last year, wasn't it?
But it was Tom Brewster from Shut Up and Sit Down. He did a brilliant video of can you still get into Netrunner? I think it's called.
Yes.
And I watched it, and I thought, you know what? I've got an afternoon. I watched it, and it instantly, after watching it, got all excited
wanted to
about
play
it
again.
because my history was that I used to have it. I grew it a little bit. I got quite a few deluxe boxes, those big boxes, and then I got to the point where I just didn't play it anymore. And like most of these collections, they sit on your shelf, and I sold it, and I always regretted it. I think selling my collection of Netrunner, and it's always had a kind of a special place in my gaming collection and history. And it wasn't until I watched that video and thought, oh wow, this actually there's a lot of weight behind this game still. There's a lot of support for this game, and yeah, I just thought brilliant. And I instantly checked out what was then Nisei, checked out their system gateway core set, and checked out all these things, and ended up buying a copy. And yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
loved it. Let's dive a little bit deeper and explore.
Oh, yes. Rubbing my hands together.
Yeah, the actual corporations and the runners of Netrunner. So again, if you stuck with us, because I know we've kind of laboured a bit of the history and we've gone through kind of our thoughts and feelings on the game, but let's actually dive a little bit deeper and explore, right? So we're going to start with corporations, right? So in the game, there are 4 corporations that you can choose to play as, which are NBN, Jinteki, Weyland, and Haas-Bioroid, yeah.
Good.
And
I was just waiting for you to forget one of them and
and
start flailing. But no, you nailed it. Yep, those are the 4 corps.
The general premise of the corporation, as we kind of said at the beginning, is that they are pretty much building their board state, and they start with 3 central servers, and they will basically build remote servers as the game continues. And the central servers are essentially your deck of cards, which is your R&D. Your discard pile is your archives, and your headquarters or HQ is your hand, essentially, which is represented by your identity card, which gives you your kind of faction ability. Or
we did warn you about the terminology.
Yeah.
Stick with us, right?
We haven't even got to the runner side yet, and then it gets really spicy.
It gets a bit mad. and then kind of throughout the game, you are playing operation cards, which are like event cards that you're paying credits and money for to do many cool things within the game. You're kind of playing ice. So ice is like the firewalls.
Yeah,
you're
defenses for
building.
your servers,
yeah. And these the cards are like played horizontally in front of the servers that you play, and essentially building your defensive lines. And these ice, for me, is what excites me the most about the game. Whether you're interacting against the ice or whether you're putting the ice down as your kind of shields against the runners. That's why I love about it, because each of these ice has what's called subroutines on, and they're essentially things that will trigger if a runner attempts to try and break through the ice.
If they don't have the right tools to get through.
Could be they need money. It could be that they need to have a specific set of software. It could be all sorts of different things, and it creates this maze for the runner to try and navigate through.
But what I love is that almost everything the corporation does is hidden.
Yes.
Right? So when the corporation is building these defences, these
face
ice
down.
cards are installed face down. They go onto the board face down, and the runner doesn't know what they are until they run into it.
And the thing they're protecting is face down as well.
Exactly.
So they don't even know what the
Yep.
reward is going to be on the end.
Exactly.
I'll say I did some air quotes then, because it's not always a reward, that's for sure.
No, exactly.
Could be a trap.
Yes, exactly.
Precisely, yeah. And we'll talk about Jinteki, the faction, in a
Yes.
minute.
Yeah, they'll come up.
But yeah, I think that's one of the things that's great about the corporation side in general is the hidden information.
Yeah.
Yes, they're building that board state, and yes, the runner's going to interact with it, but there's a huge amount of uncertainty until the runner does.
Yeah.
And so you can play all kinds of mind games as the corporation. Which
Well,
is
sometimes
a lot
as
of
a runner, you make a run knowing you're never going to make it, just to get some information for the first
Just
few
open it
rounds,
up.
you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
or for many other just for economically to force the corporation to spend some money, to force the corporation to pay to enable these bits of defense that they have.
to flip the card, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you might run just to deny them having money to do something else the next turn.
Yeah.
It gets deep pretty quick.
Yeah, so the 3 central servers is obviously how the runner can kind of interact with either cards in your hand, cards in your deck, or cards in your discard pile. But the remote servers is essentially where you're playing assets, which could be, economy, gives you money, these things, or agendas, which can be put into these remote servers as well. And as Ian said earlier, agendas are the cards that you want to try and advance to win, and it's also the cards that the runner wants to try and steal. So this is why it becomes a shell game, where you're putting the different cards all face down, you're putting all the defenses up there face down, and it gets quite thematic, right? Because as a runner, you're trying to hack into a server, you don't know what's in there.
Yep.
You don't know what countermeasures you're going to come up against, and you don't know what traps that are potentially going to be laid for you, and just the beauty of as a corporation, what I enjoy about the Corp is just laying all of that
setting up the puzzle,
and the mind games, as you say, that you have between you and the other
runner
player.
gets all the way in past all your defense, and then they flip a trap, and it's like, oh, for God's
yeah,
sake.
it's pretty much one of the most most iconic early experiences that you'll have in Netrunner. Is like spending every resource you have and every card you've got out, using everything to get into a server, only to find out there's something real nasty
nearly kills
at
you.
the end.
Yeah.
And it's not an agenda, it's something that's
and you feel like
gonna kill
kick
you.
in the knackers.
You feel like a greedy bastard as the Corp, don't you? You feel like you're that horrible shit.
There's a lot of like poker face moments where it's like, oh yeah, I'll use this bit of defense, and I want you to get in because you're going to die if you get in, but you have to kind of play the game of like, you're going to get to access it now, and it's a lot of fun.
But that's kind of the general overview of corporations, and I'm sure that there's a lot more in it, guys. Then we're kind of giving it, but we haven't.
This is the 30,000 foot view.
Yeah. But let's just talk briefly about the different factions. So Haas-Bioroid, or like the purple faction cards, if you want to call it that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, but they, as a faction, they're pretty much all about ice and defense,
robotics and stuff.
There's thematically and mechanically. So thematically, Haas-Bioroid are a corporation who produce what are called bioroids, basically robots, humanoid robots, and so that's kind of what their theme is based around. Is that production of bioroids and the selling of bioroids into the world. Mechanically in the game, what they're big on is yes, they have a lot of very big ice.
Strong ice.
So like ice that costs a lot to use, but that also has some very impactful effects on the runner. They do a lot of what's called core damage now. You might have previously known as brain damage, which is an effect that causes the runner's maximum hand size to be reduced, and it can kill them. If your hand size gets into the negative, then you lose on the next turn. Big ice certainly is a feature of Haas-Bioroid, but probably the most iconic mechanic within Haas-Bioroid is the idea of efficiency.
So that's those guys. So who else we got? Jinteki, who are the red factions. And
naughty.
So from my knowledge, Jinteki loves a trap. Loves dealing net damage to the runner, and essentially loves to try and kill the runner. basically eliminate the runner without having to score. And they've obviously got ways of scoring, like all corporations do, but they just love a trap. One of the cards that just sticks in my mind is Snare. Which is just a typical card. Bait and switch trap kind of card that you will run into and you will swear.
Whenever you play Jinteki, you're always like, I want to get in that server, but I don't.
I know it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt me going through to get to the server. It's going to hurt me when I get there.
If you haven't died to a snare, I could argue that you haven't played Netrunner. It's that kind of It's a rite of passage.
It is
exactly.
It is.
You're right. Jinteki again thematically. They're about kind of bioorganics and stuff, so like they're involved in a lot of kind of futuristic farming and genetic manipulation, breeding animals and maybe in some cases people, biological or genetic stuff. They're doing all that kind of thing. But so that's them. Jinteki.
NBN, so they're like the tele news broadcasting.
They were my favourites.
The yellow faction, who they love a tag, don't they?
Yeah, they do love a tag.
They love tagging the runner and then doing horrible things to the runner.
Always used to love the cards. If the player is tagged, screw with them.
They do lots of horrible, nasty crap.
I think like 90% of cards that start with "if the player is tagged" are NBN cards. But in terms of NBN as a whole, thematically they're a media corporation. So pick your evil media billionaire of choice. Exactly. It's they're controlling the narrative and they're controlling the news and propaganda and politically they're very heavily involved. Thematically that's where they fit into the universe, and then mechanically. Tagging is a big thing, and again we've mentioned more terminology without explaining what it is. The idea of a tag is that the corporation's figured out where the runner is.
Yeah.
In the game, it's basically tokens that you accrue, and you if you have tags, you quote unquote are tagged.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of tag punishment cards that can only be played when you're tagged, or perhaps scale up their impact depending on how many tags you have. So tagging is like a huge part of NBN's game plan.
And then that leads us to the last one, Weyland. So
murder.
Yeah, Weyland, basically, you know the corporation in Aliens?
Yeah.
It's like them, basically. They don't give two craps about anybody. And
what's it? That's where they borrow the name from, right?
Absolutely.
Jack Weyland.
Their modus operandi is to kill you,
Yeah.
pretty much. Find you, kill you, eradicate you from the planet.
From a thematic perspective, they are involved in things like construction and development of cities, large-scale construction projects. But most of that is really just a front for dastardly things they're doing. I mean, they're politically corrupt. They are definitely engaging in literal murder, sending out death squads to hunt down people that they don't want to be around anymore. Burning entire cities to the ground to make way for their new superhighway.
Probably as close to like the mob as you could get to in this.
I mean, there's even an identity within Weyland called the Outfit, which is effectively basically mob in the future. It's the family, and they're very much mercenary and in it for the money.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say this might be a wrong representation of them, but they've reminded me with like the most classic like Corp faction, where they're just totally evil, and what they do well, but they're not like a trappy faction or a fast advanced faction.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way that Jinteki has a heavy focus on net damage, Weyland have a really big focus on meat damage, which again, it's more terminology. Actually, net damage and meat damage in the game do exactly the same thing. They're just two different flavours of
like
it.
A type of damage.
Some cards can protect you from one and not the other, so it depends what you're facing. But again, they do a lot of murders. They definitely try and kill runners, probably more like explicitly and more directly than Jinteki. Jinteki, like I said before, are more like, we're doing our thing.
We'll kill you if you try and stop.
You mess with us, you will end up dead, right? But it won't look like we murdered you, but you'll end up dead. Weyland are just like, no. If you even say something bad about us, we're going to send a guy round to shoot you in the head. Yeah, a lot of fun, but a lot of murder.
Yeah,
a lot of murder.
There you go. That's the corpse. So we switch sides to the other side of the table, which is the runners.
I was going to say the good side, but actually, as we'll explain, a lot of the runners are also not good people.
Start with the names, and that will probably lead you down the track.
We're thinking of one faction in particular, aren't we?
Yeah. So the runners in general, their whole kind of game really is to kind of build up their rig. And the rig is essentially broken down into three different kind of card types. You've got your software, which is all of like your kind of anti-counter measures to interact with the opponent's ice.
Programs. If we're gonna enforce the glossary,
they are programs.
Yes, they are software.
And you've got different types of programs that will interact with different types of ice. And there are like three types, I think, from memory.
Three types of ice, three kinds of ice breakers. But there are other programs that aren't ice breakers as well that do other things.
Yeah.
But basically programs are cards the runner will install
your weapons
to then use later to do something.
And then you've got your hardware, which is like your consoles, and that generate memory units, which these programs will need to consume in order to be installed.
If you're lost at this point, don't worry, because everyone is when they first experience all of this jargon.
It's normal. But you got your hardware, and then you've got your resources, which would be your jobs, your locations, people that are helping you out, all those kinds of things. And then essentially you are trying to build this board state so that you have the tools in order to make runs and find those agendas and score them. Well, let's start with the shapers. From my knowledge and memory, the shapers are all in it for the tinkering. They love tinkering with all the different kind of software, hardware, and they run and hack because they can, and they get enjoyment out of the process of the challenge. Yeah. They don't do it for political gains. They don't do it for
It's an intellectual exercise.
It's
they're creative and exploratory, aren't they? Yeah.
And I think because of their kind of faction, they have a lot of toys to play with. And shapers are, they're good versatile runners.
I used to like them for that exact word. They were my favourite because they were versatile.
Had the tools.
You felt like you had the tools to be able to bring out what you wanted, to go down the method that was best for that situation, whereas a lot of the other ones try and overwhelm the Corp with what they're trying to do, you know?
Yeah,
they always
I
felt
agree.
quite versatile.
Shaper is probably the most intricate of the main runner factions.
Yep.
Fiddly, some would describe it as. There's a lot of times where you're realizing synergies between cards, and it's kind of like, right, I'm going to fire this thing off, which then lets me do this thing, which it's not quite combo-y, but there's a lot of interdependency between Shaper cards.
A lot going on.
They tend to install a lot. You know, they'll often have a bigger rig than some of the other factions.
And the word you used, like you say, it's not combo-y. The other word you used was perfect. It was synergy. There's a lot of synergies in there, and that's great.
So that's Shapers.
Yeah.
Criminals.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can play
Hence why they're not all good guys, right?
No, exactly. You are playing as a criminal. So criminals, thematically, they are definitely in it for themselves. They're in it for the money. And they like to find the kind of back doors and ways of breaking into the corporations, and lots of like bait and switch and
Take money off.
Sneaky is a good word for it. Yeah, I mean, like you say, thematically, the name says all. They're criminals. You know, they're out for hire. They're not in it for political or moral or ethical reasons. They just want to get paid.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason they're doing any of this. Mechanically, like you say, sneakiness is definitely a big part of what they do. They're very focused on money, on credits, the economy side of the game, both gaining their own money and denying the corporation its money.
Freezing them out.
There's some really like classic criminal cards that are about that kind of economic fight between the two sides.
Fumbling with the Corp's hand as well, you know, it's very much to do with that kind of sneaking in there and having a look at their files, basically.
Yeah, so when JP was talking about those 3 central servers that the Corp starts with, so HQ, which is their hand, R&D, which is their deck, and Archives, which is their discard, each of the three main runner factions more or less focuses slightly on one of those 3. And for criminals, it's HQ, it's the player's hand. They have lots of cards that allow them to access more cards from the Corp's hand, cards that allow them to get into the hand even when it's well defended. So that's definitely a big part of it.
There as well.
Yeah, get extra perks like money. But criminal have a lot of ways of either temporarily or permanently flipping some of those cards to both gain information and try and scupper the corporation's plans. That along with the economic side of things is really what they're about.
That's them. So the last kind of main faction is Anarchs, and I think they're probably my favourite. As the name will suggest, they are very politically motivated. They will basically watch the world burn if it means that they're getting justice and basically what they stand for. And they are the most destructive kind of runner archetype that there is. They love basically spreading viruses all over the corporation's board state and manipulating various things based off those viruses, basically blowing stuff up, getting rid of stuff, and that's why
destruction is probably, as you would imagine, for a faction called Anarch. Destruction is like the key word for them. You know, they destroy ice, they destroy entire servers. In fact, in some cases, they try and destroy the entire board state in order to win. With a little help from some friends that we might talk about later when we talk about mini factions. But Anarchs are single-mindedly just getting what they want, and they don't care what the cost is. And they're not like criminals. They're not in it for the money, and they're not like Shapers. They're not in it for some kind of higher purpose. They are just focused on getting the outcome they want by any means. It's a really fun faction to play because you're often messing with the Corp, and that's a nice feeling because in a lot of other situations it's kind of the Corp that gets to mess with you because they've got the information advantage.
You always feel like you're up against it as a runner, whereas the Anarch sometimes can flip that.
Yeah, because they're just like, do you know what? Doesn't matter what you do as a Corp because I'm just gonna mess your shit up. It's just it can be so much fun.
So we go.
That would go quite nicely into. I imagine we're going to talk about deck building shortly, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, couple of minutes on deck building. I mean, deck building. If anyone who knows me knows that I love deck building. I know it's not for everyone, and hence why Netrunner DB, the website that helps you out with that stuff.
Thank God for that website.
Yeah. Exactly. But essentially, I love the deck building element for both sides, both Corp and the runner side. But essentially, you pick a Corp, and that's static. But as the runner side, when you pick one of the runner factions, you also have to pick a single runner within that faction, and they all have...
True on the Corp side as well. Even once you've picked a faction, there's then many different identities.
Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, so the idea being is that they've all got kind of asymmetric abilities, and really what the three individual mini factions do is they add differences to those and different slants to that. But essentially, what I like about it is that if you pick a Shaper faction, on your runner, it tells you how much of other factions you can include within that deck.
Their influence,
Yeah, their influence, and that influence can be spent, but there are some really powerful cards that might be 3 or 4 influence, and there are other ones that are rubbish.
Some cases,
exactly, and there are other ones that might be 3 or 1. It's quite common,
so
right?
there are some neutral cards that are none, and then there's lots of cards that are one influence. So you could
maybe 2.
You could put I was about to say you could put loads of them. You can never have more than 3 copies of a card.
Yeah.
Except some very specific cards that say it on the card, don't at me.
Yeah.
But by and large, 3 is the maximum of any card.
So sort of getting that balance right, where you might go, well, I can only afford 1 influence for that one because I want to include that and that and that and that.
Yeah, it's a game in itself, isn't it?
Oh, it's mental because every runner faction has a strength. So you're trying to pick
trying
the
to
most
get the best of
important
everything
cards from other ones. And to be honest, if you make what I would call a monocolor, single like if you just pick Shaper
didn't spend
cards,
any influence.
my God, you'd struggle to play the game. So you do have to branch out a little bit.
Or borrow the tools from the other factions.
Exactly. And it's really interesting little puzzle for me. Yeah. For some, it would switch people off. Like I know JP, although you're kind of half interested in that, the effort involved is not something you would enjoy.
I appreciate the complexity that the deck building offers in Netrunner and other card games, but I can't be arsed.
Yeah.
So net decking is what they call it, where you can literally go and beg, borrow, and steal from the people that have done the hard work, and you just read the stories of like, this is what this deck's trying to do. This is the win condition that it's geared up for. I love that.
The beauty, in a way, of the deck building mechanic. I don't want to do it from scratch. No. I'm quite happy to go and grab a deck that I know is very good and then learn how to play it well. And then maybe tweak it a bit to make it my own.
I was going to say, I'm nowhere near these people who like to just make it from scratch. I like to grab a theme, grab a creative push, and then take their deck, export it, and then I will tinker it a lot. So I will go like, I like that, I'm not too keen on that, I prefer that. So I'll change maybe a third of the deck, but the thrust of it will be the same. So I'm not a complete from scratch. So I do net deck and then modify to a fairly large.
But it caters, doesn't it? Caters for both. If you want to get involved in the deck building, it is there. And it's rich. It's very, very rich.
And the tools on Netrunner DB are, again, they were good even 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
But hopefully what you can take away from this is, you can tell we love this game.
Yeah.
I wanted to do an episode on this game because I think it just deserves the time. It deserves the conversation. And actually, just talking about it makes me want to play it right now.
It deserves the promotion as well.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying it's ignored because there is a really good community, but I think it's better than the exposure it gets.
Yeah. I 100% agree. Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, I still maintain that this is up there as being not just one of the best card games out there, but one of the best games out there.
I go along with that.
And I would say, if any of this conversation has been very interesting for you as our listeners, then
which we hope it has.
And if not, sorry, but we love it. Then I'd urge you just to pick up System Gateway. Right, and we'll put the details on, in the show notes of how you can find that. And the System Gateway is a very small box that you can buy, 30 quid, something like that.
Yeah.
And it gives you a good starting kind of foray into both sides and various different, all the factions that we've covered. And it also gives you some starter decks with some neutral identities on that. Literally out of the box, you can basically take the cellophane off, and you can get
like
playing.
dual decks. You're ready to go.
You're ready to go,
away.
And I think that is just a perfect way of just starting to learn the game, and and if there's someone else that you think they might be really interested in this, and you can learn that together, that's brilliant. That's perfect.
Or even if you don't want to pay the money for it, just go and have a look at the YouTube video. Shut up and sit down on it.
Yeah,
go and have a look.
If that doesn't whet your appetite, then it's probably not for you. But if you watch that and think, ooh,
that's interesting,
then do it.
And also just watching Tom just become this persona of John Netrunner.
Yeah, that's also pretty entertaining.
Which is quite funny. I'm tired.
Yeah, me too.
It's JP's bedtime.
It's a Friday night.
Should we go on to the questions?
Yeah.
Let's do it. So we're back after that long Netrunner chat. We're going to pull in a question from Stuart Enu, who's actually from my gaming group, and he has asked, if your house is on fire, steady Stuart.
Wow, this
went
went dark real fast.
Very dark. Maybe with a Netrunner theme. It's
if Weyland have sent the boys round.
Yeah, if Weyland has sent the heavies round, and your house is on fire, but your loved ones and pets are safe. He did say that.
Yeah.
Okay. You can grab only one game to save from the flames. What would it be?
It's a tough one, that one. I mean, to be honest, because of the value as well, I would say for me, Terraforming Mars, because I've got the kickstarted big box, and I love that game. I would say it's probably going to be that one as a.
Yeah.
But I would say value-wise, my Lord of the Rings collection is probably more. But we'll go with Terraforming Mars.
Fair enough.
It is pretty much your number one game, right?
Yeah.
I know you've got a few that are on the periphery. That
there's
play
ones that kind of
times,
sneak up over the time, but I would say longevity
consistently been up there.
It's still going. It's still strong, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good shout, Ian.
It's a lot easier for me, as famously my collection is almost non-existent.
Well, he's got one game, so
I leech off the lot of you.
It's Netrunner, or it's the other one.
Do you know that? I actually wasn't going to say Netrunner, but now that you mention it, yes, it would have to be Netrunner because I have irreplaceable stuff in there. I've got promos and stuff from back in the day that would either be incredibly expensive or borderline impossible to find now. My original answer was going to be my Crokinole board.
Say your Tracy board,
and that would hurt me a lot.
Yeah,
but I could
replace it
relatively cost effectively replace that board. I couldn't replace my Netrunner collection.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So actually, in keeping with this episode, my answer would be Netrunner.
I mean, you're gonna know what my answer is.
Yeah, you need a wheelbarrow for it. I think I can guess.
Yeah.
Fog of Love, right?
Yeah, Fog of Love. I love that game. Fog of Love is not going to burn. No, it's probably going to be bones. Too many bones. I mean, it's neoprene. It's going to go up, isn't it? The poker chips.
Fumes.
The poker chips might be alright, apart from the artwork. They might be a bit charred. But no, the challenge with that is the trove chest is heavy.
Yeah, right. You're going to need a wheelbarrow.
Exactly. But if only to take the trove chest out to pay for the new house, which is just
this is the thing. It'd pretty much cover the deposit, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But then I was thinking that's the obvious answer. So what wouldn't be the obvious answer for me would be the game that I've just fell in love with pretty recently.
The game that you'd be most sad if you didn't buy it, right?
Lisboa, which I've just got into, and I freaking love that game. That's literally.
I was peering onto the floor, but it's not
there.
there anymore.
Lorenzo.
No, Lisboa, which I will talk about in a future episode in more detail. Yeah. So I think that would be one. And again, it's not cheap, but it's beautiful. I love it.
This is a much tougher question for you guys because you've got massive collections with lots of really valuable and sentimental and really great games in it. So it's a lot harder for you.
In a couple of weeks' time, it's going to be a more difficult question, to be fair.
Kickstarters. Lots more value coming into the Kallax shells. But anyway, thanks for that question, Stuart.
Cheers, Stu.
I'd like to know what your game is that you'd save, Stuart, so let us know.
And anyone else. Just stick it in the comments.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Thanks, Stuart. As we head towards the end of the episode, we need to talk about a penultimate turn. So what is coming up? What are we excited for? Mr. Kerley, I know you have got some lovely presents dropping, and they're not Christmas presents.
You just mentioned Kickstarter a minute ago, and your eyes lit up.
Yeah.
Which one or ones have you got?
I'm even going to abandon an upcoming game that I was going to talk about and just talk about Kickstarters instead.
Fair.
Because this is like the most exciting Kickstarter incoming that I've had ever.
Go
on. This is the kind of mid-pandemic ordering kind of too many clicks online that we all kind of had in the pandemic, and they're starting to arrive now. So I've just had Mosaic turn up, and that's got a whole bunch of the Colossus edition. So there's a lot of like really spangly new bits, and I won't go into detail, but it's a Civ builder, and it's really highly rated. And
but you don't like Civ games?
No, I don't like Civ games.
Love Civ.
I've got so many of them; it's difficult getting them all to the table at any one time.
Fair.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. Just the whole aesthetic was immediate. I was like, I'm getting that game, and it's just turned up. It's getting really good reviews, so looking forward to that.
Sure, you'll be able to discuss it on a future episode. Right?
Yeah,
once you've had a chance to get into it.
I think that's another one for me and JP to have a little tutorial playthrough.
Happy to.
Yeah. The other one that's just turned up, and it's gone to my pen. That's just how long ago it was. It was before I moved house, and I hadn't bought a new house yet, so I didn't even know where it was going to be, and I knew it was going to be a long time, so I had to put in the address for my parents.
That's brilliant.
So this is how long ago this was. I looked at the date the other day, and I think it was March 2019.
Yeah.
I ordered it, and it is January 2023.
That's pre-pandemic.
Yeah,
that's pre-COVID.
Three and a half plus years. That's Europa Universalis. All right.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, Europa. It's based on a computer game, and it is. I mean, the computer game's more like a flipping spreadsheet anyway. But it's an area control strategy.
Are you sure it's just not like Excel, Office 365?
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah. So I think the board game is a little bit more accessible, but I did look at the complexity rating on BGG, and it was like 4.5-ish.
Oh, wow.
Which is like...
There's not much that gets up there.
Yeah, no. Anything over 4, and it's a bit of a brain burner, so 4.5. And I looked at the rule book, and it's like, half a centimetre thick, and it's like proper chunky.
Lots of charts and tables.
Yeah, exactly.
And
you look at it, and the pages are like absolutely rammed full of information.
So as soon as you get up there, I can't help start thinking about, like Battle for North Africa, and kind of
exactly.
like
it's that.
where it's like, right, we're going to do our action, and then I'm going to go open up this book, and we're going to find out what happens for 20 minutes.
Yeah. So I'm hoping once the rules are down a little bit, I'm going to watch a video. JP's going to come around, and we're going to do a little bit of a. We'll play it, but it's going to be pure learning.
We'll have a learning day.
Yeah, day. So
that's a really good idea, though. Like, I imagine a lot of people don't do that because when they get a new game, they're just excited and they want to get it to the table and play it. But because they haven't really learned it, they can't really teach it, and probably everyone has a bit less of a good time than they should.
And as well, it's about approaching it with the right mentality. Like, as much as we say, first game is a learning game, you still want to win it.
Yeah.
Whereas if we say...
Well,
fair enough.
JP's quite happy losing. I mean, he wouldn't still be here otherwise, would he?
So it's a change of my mentality where I'm literally going into it going, right,
this doesn't matter.
I am not trying to win it. I am trying to feel it out. What does this do? What does that do? And as well, time goes out the window, so it's more a fact of, right, let's look that up. And you don't get frustrated because you know that that's the plan.
Yeah, the pressure's on sometimes when you're facilitating or running learning games with other people, because I mean, my main objective in doing that is to make sure everyone has a great time. And it's difficult.
Which is sometimes in conflict with everyone learning the game as best they can.
100%. So I think with a game with that complexity at 4.5, it just warrants that time and investment just to make sure we know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and it looked like the BGG ratings are through the roof, the reviews are through the roof.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
Everyone loves it, so I'm really looking forward to getting my teeth into it and just sort of, seeing
figuring it out.
Yeah, figuring it out.
Is it another Civ game?
No, of course not.
Yeah,
of course it is. Yeah.
So 2 Civ games.
It's another Civ game.
One's heavy, one's lighter.
Like you said, because Kerley, famously doesn't really enjoy Civ games. He's trying to get into them. So he thought he'd try some. Really, force himself.
Yeah.
That I'm really looking forward to getting my teeth into that one. And literally just before recording, I've had an email from the distributor for Scythe. Oh, I forget the pronunciation. Scythe.
I can never pronounce them.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm going to embarrass myself.
Probably the name of the game.
Frosthaven's on the way. So Frosthaven is due to arrive in the next couple of days. I've just had that email confirmed. So I knew it was around now because I knew that the boats were arriving. But there's the first shipment has just been sent, and apparently I'm in it.
Sweet.
So yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I'll go next. Mine's another Kickstarter / game found. Can't remember which one. But it's Hoplomachus, Victorum, and Remastered,
I'm really
which
in
is, I think, probably 3 weeks away.
Nice.
So yeah, I haven't obviously had any dispatch notifications. I'll be a bit more excited, but I know it's not far. And for those that don't know what this game is, it's literally gladiators fighting in an arena made by Chip Theory Games.
Of course.
Of course.
Excited.
And how many expansions are you going to be buying?
No, there's only 2 big boxes because you've got Hoplo Remastered, which is as the name suggests, the remastered version of the original Hoplomachus game that Chip Theory brought out, one of their first ever. And when you look at the original,
how long ago was it? Roughly?
Oh Christ!
What are we talking? 8, 10?
Yeah, maybe something like that. It looks dated. It's basically the artwork's all done on kind of open source, so it's a kind of mismatchy artwork all over the place. But it's always been a very good game, and I managed to play a little bit at GridCon, as you'll know if you've listened to the GridCon episode, and I loved it. And I just think it's a lovely little tactical skirmish game. But actually, the Victorum box, which is the separate box, which is actually what drove the campaign originally, is solo only.
Right.
So you go on this grand solo campaign, kind of travelling around the various world and kind of areas which has all the different factions, like the new Argonauts and the Amazons and the Parthians and the Atlanteans and all those kinds of things. And you're recruiting units for your kind of posse, and essentially you're trying to go through different eras and taking on some of the other big gladiators all the way up to the big boss, which could be Pluto or one of his many minions like the Hydra and other things, and you're just literally going at it. And because you do
love a solo game.
Yeah, I think I do like a solo game that's quite engaging, and it just spoke to me. And then I learned about the remastered as well, which is more multiplayer, where you can literally just get 4 of you around the table. We all have a team, and we all just go rah and chuck dice and kill each other and just have a bit of a good time. So
sorry, I'm just chuckling because you said it spoke to you, and in my mind I was envisaging
JP, back me.
This Kickstarter box just going.
That's JP, exactly what happened.
JP, you have to back this.
Yes, I mean I don't need much convincing. So yeah, that's Hoplo. Looking forward to it. I'll let you know when it actually gets a bit closer. What about you, Ian?
So, well, all of my Kickstarters that I've been backing, they're all coming in. And,
Crokinole 2.
I've been down my local game shop all the time buying new games. No, of course I haven't. But I do have some stuff coming up, which is exciting. This weekend, in fact, me and Becky and Chris from the podcast are headed up to Wales for a invitational Crokinole tournament.
Nice.
So there's a guy called Steve Burrows, who's super active in the Crokinole community, and especially in South Wales. He's introduced many, many dozens of people to the greatest game on earth, and he's running a little friendly team tournament at his house. And we were asked to put together a team, which I did, and we're going to go up there and try and kick some ass.
Nice, I'll have to report back.
Yes, yeah, we'll get some pictures for the socials and whatnot, and obviously we're going up, branded up, we're going to wear our hoodies and represent whose turn is it anyway.
Yeah.
And hopefully bring home some prizes and or glory.
Nice, make sure you get some videos.
If not, at least a good story.
Yeah. If we see no photos, it means they did really bad.
That's it, we broke down on the M5 and gave up.
Never got there, yeah.
But yeah, so I've got that coming up, and alongside that, I'm, as I've promised, probably the last 3 or 4 episodes that I've been on, I am going to start getting signed up for some games in the group.
Game? What game are you...
Exactly. So got lots of plans for games to happen.
Make sure they happen.
And yes, I will. I'm saluting JP as the boss of the group.
Damn bloody right.
But yeah, hopefully January will get me to the table a bit more.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Right, we've got to the end of the show, and I just want to say it feels nice to be first player again.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Does it actually?
Yeah. Yeah, I've always enjoyed first play. I know others have maybe enjoyed it and maybe gone, oh my god, there's a lot of work involved. But you know me, I like the work.
I guess your job leads into that as well. Right?
But no, it's quite nice because it's good to kind of let some of the other players to have a go and talk about some of the topics that they wanted to talk about, and it's been quite varied. And
I think as well it probably makes the podcast feel even more real, because it's kind of like, we started, you were first player, we did some episodes, and now it's kind of gone out and gone around and come back to you, and it's kind of like you're doing it again. So it's sort of, do you know what I mean? It probably makes it feel more concrete.
Yeah,
it's not just a thing we're trying now, it is actually a thing that we're doing.
It's a concept that's kind of working. Well, it works for us, and it just means that everyone can kind of pitch in if they want to, with the content ideas, and others like yourselves, to be fair, who like to pitch in and help with the chatting. And it all needs a bit of everything. So good to be back as well. Good. So so with that,
notice how neither of us said it's good to have you back. But just read into that what you will.
Tough shit. So with that, let's wrap up. So if you've enjoyed the show, as always, then you can get in touch with us via a variety of our handles. So we are actually on Board Game Geek. If you want to kind of check us out, become a fan, and subscribe from that point of view, you can. You can also email us at players@whosturn.co.uk. We've got our Facebook page, which is Whose Turn Is It Anyway Podcast, or you can get us on Instagram at Whose Turn Podcast, and finally on TikTok at Whose Turn Is It Anyway. So we'll be back again in a couple of weeks, and whose turn is it?
Anarch.
Shaper.
Criminal.